Caribbean, however, according to Joe Rogan, the famous Oak Island legend of Nova Scotia, Canada, might contain a terrifying truth that many people are not aware of. What side of the real versus myth conversation is Joe Rogan on? If Oak Island is indeed real, what should be the next step? Join us in this video as we look into how Joe Rogan reveals the terrifying truth about Oak Island. Although he began his career in the late 1980s as a stand-up comedian, Joe Rogan only rose to national fame in 2009 when he launched his podcast, The Joe Rogan Experience. The podcast quickly became one of the most popular and influential shows in the world. The podcast features Rogan engaging in lengthy conversations with guests including comedians, actors, scientists, authors, politicians, and athletes. These conversations are based on a wide variety of topics from comedy and entertainment to politics, philosophy, and the mysteries of the universe. He has also cultivated a reputation as a controversial and polarizing figure, often sparking debate with his strong opinions on various subjects. So when he decided to discuss the legend of Oak Island and its mysterious treasures, it was destined to be explosive. Located in Nova Scotia, Canada, Oak Island and its mythical riches are some of history's most sought-after secrets. Since the 19th century, explorers from all over the world have made numerous attempts to locate its artifacts and treasures. However, despite the number of lives lost on the island while attempting to discover its riches, there are stories of many competent and talented explorers who remain inspired to take the risk. One of these is the story of the Legina brothers. 11-year-old Rick Legina could never have predicted that glancing through a copy of Reader's Digest in 1965 would affect his life forever. The story that caught his attention was about a legendary treasure hidden on an island in the wilds of Canada. He and his brother Marty became even more captivated when their father showed them an article about Oak Island in the Wall Street Journal. Rick was more intrigued by the buried treasure than his brothers, especially after learning that many others had attempted and failed to uncover it. He was young at the time, but he realized he had a tremendous assignment ahead of him, and he wasn't about to back down or give up. Rick Legina's curiosity about the Oak Island treasure was unsurprising given that he was already a natural adventurer. He had already participated in a treasure hunt in 1964 in his hometown of Kingsford. During his exploration, he came across a massive granite rock. His curiosity compelled him to investigate what was beneath it, so he enlisted the help of his brother Marty and a group of other kids, his age from their neighborhood, to lift the boulder. To Rick and his friends' dismay, they did not find any expensive or valuable objects behind the large rock. They did uncover a pile of soil beneath the rock, but that was to be anticipated, right? Nonetheless, curious souls never give up, and a slight setback did not deter Rick. Rick knew there was more out there in the world waiting for him to explore it. But before we explore Oak Island with the Legina brothers, let's discuss how a similar curiosity over 150 years ago led to the legend of treasures on this island. In 1796, a small boy spotted a weird dip on Oak Island. It was an unusual sight, and it would lead to many people coming to check out what he found. 8 years later, the Onslow Company organized a team to search the area. While we'll never know why it took them so long to start the exploration, I guess it's better late than never. After identifying the weird dip and some strange markings in the area, the explorers began drilling. They drilled down until they touched something solid. They discovered a buried stone tablet with an unusual inscription. After finding the stone, there was only one thing left to do: try to figure out what was written on it. Experts got to work seeking to interpret and understand the transcription. However, despite their best efforts, they couldn't interpret the inscription. Their failure was probably because they lacked the necessary instruments and knowledge. The transcription would not be translated until nearly 100 years later. In 1886, a professor from Halifax decoded a startling phrase: 40 feet below, 2 million pounds lie buried. No one knew what pounds meant, although the phrase does seem menacing. An interesting theory about this statement is that it suggests that a significant amount of treasure was beneath the surface, ready to be discovered. What was the origin of the treasure? Many theories have surfaced. Strangely, some people attributed the origins of the treasure to William Shakespeare. Many who questioned the writer's existence claim his literary works were created by Francis Bacon. So some treasure hunters speculated that Bacon might have dug a trench to bury his manuscripts and riches. While this hypothesis is appealing, it is now universally accepted that Shakespeare was well himself, rather than Francis Bacon or anyone else. Another story is that Oak Island's hidden riches belong to a famed French royal lady, Marie Antoinette. Marie allegedly dispatched her maid to Nova Scotia to conceal her wealth and jewelry on the island. Rumors circulated that the French Navy was also implicated in the cover-up, although this was never proven. One element that supports the theory of Marie's action is that she was captured at Varennes with no jewelry or gold on her. The list of theories goes on, with some entries involving pirates and sailors. Captain Kidd is thought to have buried part of his loot on Oak Island. Others say that when Captain Blackbeard said he buried something where none but Satan and myself can find it, he was admitting to stashing something on the island. However, the next theory is by far the most intriguing. One of the most intriguing hypotheses regarding the Oak Island treasure revolves around the marks found around the island, which appear to match a Masonic ritual. Is it possible that such a ritual took place on the island? Do the Freemasons have any connection to the island, and could they have hidden some treasures there as well? No one knows. Let's go back to the little boy, Daniel McGinnis, who discovered the weird circular depression in the ground in 1796. When he spoke up about his discovery, he didn't know he would start an exploration movement. He just saw something odd which piqued his curiosity. As he got closer, he noticed a tree with its branches cut off. On seeing the tree, he remembered all of the pirate and treasure chest stories he had heard over the years. He suspected that the branches had been removed on purpose so that the tree might function as a pulley. Daniel was determined to learn more about the tree's purpose, so he enlisted the assistance of his pals John Smith and Anthony Vaughan to find out whatever might be buried beneath the tree. With all their might and excitement, the young lads began digging, and after 2 feet, they hit a flagstone. The youngsters removed the flagstone and continued digging. They made it roughly 30 feet down, where they discovered layers upon layers of oak logs. They eventually realized they couldn't go any further by themselves and assumed they would have to wait years to be able to follow their quest. But this was only the beginning of their incredible adventure. Almost a decade later, the Onslow Company arrived and dug in the same spot where the 3 boys had previously dug. With their equipment, they were able to go deeper. After reaching 60 feet, they discovered more oak logs, this time with coconut fiber and charcoal in thick layers. The team continued to dig, curious about what lay beneath, until they discovered the stone tablet with the strange inscription. Thrilled with their finding and anticipating more bounty for their labor, they took out another layer of oak wood, but that led to disaster as water began to flood the pit they had dug. Where was the water coming from? No one could tell. Could this be a ruse to divert their attention from their search for gold? The only option to stop the flooding was to dig a tunnel through which the water could escape. However, nothing they did worked. The water continued to pour into the hole, which made their job impossible to complete. The Onslow Company eventually realized they couldn't go any further with their quest, and they quit, unfazed by the Onslow Company's obstacles in locating the Oak Island treasure. A fresh party of explorers named the Truro Company set foot on the island in 1849. They discovered an effective way to drill samples of the pit without having to deal with the water. After several days of drilling, they hit a jackpot. They successfully drilled through 2 chests full of coins. They thought this was the first hint of the vast hidden riches promised by the decoded stone tablet. There was also a claim that 3 gold links from a chain were unearthed. But these gold links went missing, and no one had any idea how it happened. The Truro Company realized that the money pit was deeper than they thought, so they had to keep draining the water. However, as they repeated the operation, they saw something strange. The level of the water in the pit was changing with the tides. This realization led to the finding that the entire beach was artificial. It was a complicated building with drains and flow tunnels beneath it. The Truro Company considered building a dam to impede the flow of water and successfully extract the riches. But in their search on the island, they came across a dam, which meant that someone had already done so earlier. Then a storm hit the island. The storm caused an extremely high tide, destroying all of their hard work. The entire treasure hunting endeavor had depleted the company's pockets. Eventually, a lack of funds for reconstruction forced them to abandon the project. In 1861, the Oak Island Association tried their luck at solving the case. They poured their hearts and efforts into reaching an 88-foot depth in the money pit and creating a new shaft to keep water out. Unfortunately, the crew experienced a major setback when the bottom of the original shaft collapsed. That wasn't the worst thing to happen. As the crew was attempting to drain the water, a boiler exploded, killing 1 worker. This led to a setback in their attempts to acquire the hidden riches. The crew abandoned the pit after learning of the man's death. This tragedy was a severe loss for everyone who had devoted their time and efforts to the search. After the Oak Island Association's failed attempt to reach the bottom of the money pit, no other expedition occurred until 1893. Frederick Blair, an experienced treasure hunter, worked with a group of explorers to locate the gold. Blair and his team dug several shafts but failed to remove the water from the pit. When they couldn't locate anything, they had no choice but to give up. However, Blair was still curious about what was beneath the surface. He teamed up with an engineer named William Chappell in 1931 to form the Chappell Company. They were able to reach depths of up to 127 feet with their equipment. Despite failing to find the promised treasure, they did unearth many more items in the money pit, such as tools and anchors. The Oak Island story piqued the interest of the Restall family, who were skilled divers and miners, in 1959. The Restalls built a coffer dam around Smith's Cove. During their excavation, they discovered coconut fibers and small stones as proof of a man-made beach. They also discovered a rock with an inscription. Regrettably, this was the Restalls' final discovery. Robert and his son were killed in a terrible accident along with 2 other workers. This was not the end of Oak Island's mystery, though. In the 1960s, Robert Dunfield spent a lot of money drilling on the island with a bulldozer. Unfortunately, his attempt was unsuccessful. Dan Blankenship worked on the island for the next 50 years with no luck. In 2006, the island was bought by Marty and Rick Legina and their partners. They spent the next decade investigating and discovering many strange things. Their discoveries included a pair of garnet earrings, ancient brooches, and a piece of ship's rail. They also found pieces of wood used to construct the original pit. Could these have belonged to pirates? But the biggest question on everyone's mind is, was the Oak Island money pit a clever hoax? Some skeptics believe that all the items discovered were left behind by previous explorers. These skeptics believe that early explorers were looking for money that didn't exist. However, many others are convinced that there is treasure on the island, and there is substantial evidence to back up their claims. Over the years, many objects have been discovered on Oak Island. These objects include coins and other artifacts dating back centuries. The presence of these artifacts suggests that someone was on the island long before modern explorers. Many explorers believe the money pit contains something valuable, despite its dangers. Is it conceivable that the pit's unique design is to prevent people from discovering what's hidden inside? Rick and Marty are just as enthusiastic about their Oak Island expedition. They understand that they may never be able to solve the Oak Island riddle, but that doesn't stop them. The Legina brothers' excitement for the Oak Island mystery hasn't dwindled in the slightest. While skeptics believe the Oak Island story is a hoax, the Legina brothers and their partners' determination might prove otherwise. They intend to solve the Oak Island puzzle and are currently seeking financing for the next phase of their expedition. Who knows, maybe the riches of Oak Island will be revealed one day. Joe Rogan's opinions on the Oak Island mystery are fascinating because they often combine skepticism with curiosity. He's known for his in-depth discussions with experts and theorists on his podcast. Rogan questions the legitimacy of the treasure while also expressing genuine interest in the history and efforts behind the search. His unique perspective adds to the debate on whether the treasure is real or simply a myth fueled by human curiosity and determination. The Legina brothers' efforts, supported by modern technology and a relentless spirit, continue to captivate audiences. Their discoveries, though not definitive proof of a vast treasure, provide tantalizing hints that keep the legend alive. The next steps for Oak Island involve more advanced exploration techniques and perhaps a new approach to solving the mystery that has eluded so many for centuries. Whether the treasure is real or not, the journey of discovery itself remains a compelling and enduring adventure.